Hello everyone, I'm Sri and this is my video report for Lab 2, which is the Lines of Charge Lab, and this is for Physics 2212. So for the introduction, the purpose of this lab was to find the excess charge on one piece of charge tape using the line charge model and compare that value to the value we got in the previous lab, which was when we used the point charge model of U tape. And some physics principles that we'll need for this lab are Coulomb's law, which is shown next to it, Newton's second law, which is F equals ma, the concept of superposition, and we need to know how electric fields interact. So for the model, we have that the system is tape A and tape B, and the surroundings is everything else. And some assumptions I made for this lab are that the charge is evenly distributed along the tape. Tape B is in equilibrium when tape A was brought closer, which basically meant that the electric force and gravitational forces are equal in magnitude but opposite in direction, and air resistance is negligible. So for the experiment, first we had to create some U-tapes by quickly ripping them off the base tape to give them a charge. And then we had to bring tape A close to tape B until tape B started floating. And then since the negatively charged pen was attracted to the tape, we know that the tape was positively charged because opposite charges attract. And then there's a preview of the results and measurements. So tape B length, that was 0.204 meters, while the width was 0.019 meters. And the mass of tape B is 0.000204 kilograms. And then the separation distance, which is the distance that separated tape A and tape B when tape B started floating, was 0.024 meters. And then after using the line charge model, I found that the charge on the tape was 2.364 times 10 to the negative 8 coulombs. So these were my calculations to find the charge on the tape using the line charge model. I basically just set the force of gravity equal to the electric force to find this value, and I got that value to be 2.364 times 10 to the negative 8 coulombs. And this value is different from the previous lab's value because we used the line charge model in this lab while we used the point charge model in the last one. So this is the model I got using code. And the green arrows represent the electric fields of individual parts of the tape, and the yellow arrow is the gravitational force on the tape, and the white arrow is the sum of the electric force. So this is the code that I wrote for this lab. I basically used the starter code and used the values that corresponded to my experiment and got the model that was shown in the previous slide. So here's a discussion of some of the conclusions and sources of error in this lab. So some of the sources of error, the tape may have been mishandled by me. So I could have accidentally touched the tape when I wasn't supposed to, and that could have neutralized the charge and changed the positive charge that was supposed to be on the tape. And my measurements may have been inaccurate because measuring the separation distance between tape A and tape B when tape B started floating is quite difficult. So that could have contributed to the error. And some of the assumptions I made in one of the slides before it, many of them could have not been true. So that also could have contributed to the error. So for the what if question, what if you had modeled each of your tapes as a single point charge like in the previous lab? So these are some of my calculations from the previous lab, and how I got this value was by setting the gravitational force equal to the electric force, but using the point charge model instead. And after doing that, I found that the charge equals 1.132 times 10 to the negative 8 coulombs, and this is my value for the last lab, while my value for this lab was 2.364 times 10 to the negative 8 coulombs. So we can see that the charge that I got using the line charge model is significantly greater than the value I got in the previous lab. And for the why question, why do these estimates differ? Which value is more likely to be closer to the real value and why? The value that we got in this lab is much more likely to be closer to the real value because we divided the tape into many more parts in this lab, so it will be much more accurate and closer to the real value, while we assumed in the last lab that all the charge was concentrated at one point in the tape. So that assumption is not right. So the value we got in the previous lab is more likely to be wrong. Thank you for watching my video report.